situation where your boundaries were crossed as a leader? I know it was probably pretty frustrating. However, in this video, we're going to work together to help you be more prepared in terms of addressing this situation when it happens. Now, crossing boundaries is something that occurs to the best of us. It occurs to women in leadership, it occurs to men in leadership, and it occurs to people that maybe are not leaders yet. But what I have found that happens oftentimes when people are struggling to reset those boundaries when someone crosses them is that they simply don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They don't know when to say it. They don't know how to say it. Well, guess what? In this video, you're going to learn some strategies that will help you feel more equipped and ready to address those situations when they come up. Now, earlier today, we had a live video and we talked a bit more about boundaries and when someone crosses them, what you can do. I talked briefly about the internal aspect of it, the external aspect, and etc. If I have a bit more time, I'll go into it in this video, but I'm going to share with you several strategies today that will help you. And if we have some time to recap, let me know. This is a question and answer session. Therefore, you are welcome to ask me any questions as it relates to handling a situation when your boundaries have been crossed. If you are new to me, my name is Dr. Jacinta, and I'm so glad that you are here today. If you are a subscriber, welcome back, friend. I'm glad that you are here. My mission here is to help you be able to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure. If you are a woman in leadership, you are in my direct target audience that I provide executive coaching services to, or group services to, and consultations. You're welcome to reach out to me and ask me any questions or schedule a strategy session in the description below. Now, on many of the platforms that I have accounts on, I have a mix of individuals. I have women in leadership that follow me, men in leadership, and individuals that are not quite leaders just yet. And I welcome all of you here today because we're going to learn and we're going to talk about a couple things to help you really be able to feel more empowered and equipped to handle these situations when they come up. Now, I want to know from you, have you ever had your boundaries crossed as a leader? Let me know in the comments below. Let's talk about it specifically. If you're watching this portion of the video, you are watching the replay, and I'm glad that you're here. This is a live video. Therefore, there typically is a point in time where YouTube will bring the audience in, and when they do, give me just a few moments so I can say hello to everyone. So as I mentioned before, has anyone ever crossed your boundaries as a leader? Put it in the comments below. Let's talk about it. For me personally, that has definitely happened to me many times in my career, which is the reason why I want to give you some insights, some guidance to help you be able to feel more confident and comfortable addressing these very under pressure situations. Now, I want to say hello to all of you who are joining today. Feel free to say hello. And number one, let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you are joining from today. Number two, let me know, have you ever had your boundaries crossed as a leader in your particular profession or at your workplace? Let me know in the comments below. Let's talk about it today. This is a question and answer session. And you're welcome to ask me any questions as it relates to this topic. If you are trying to elevate how you are communicating as a leader, this is the best channel for you to subscribe to. This channel, I specifically give you advanced communication strategies and techniques that will help you to communicate at a higher level than your peers. My mission here is to help you be able to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure. A lot of people on YouTube are not talking about this. They talk about communicating and say this, do that. But what happens? What happens when you're under pressure? That's why you come to Excite Excellence Incorporated. That's why I'm here to support you all on your journey. If you're a woman in leadership, you're in my direct audience. I provide executive coaching and consulting services to. If you're a man in leadership or a leader that is maybe just don't have everything figured out just yet, you're going to learn a lot of information here from the channel. Now, as I mentioned earlier, before those of you have joined, and welcome again, we talked about earlier today in terms of how exactly you can start to develop your responses when someone crosses you. And so we talked about that in an earlier live. Check a look at the live that says someone crossed your boundaries. Do this. That will give you a bit more insight there. Today, we're going to focus specifically on how you need to communicate it. Now, what happens a lot of times when people are trying to reset their boundaries, most of the time people are a bit timid and a bit scared to do so. Have any of you ever felt a bit timid or scared to reset your boundaries? Let me know in the comments below. This is something that happens very, 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 very often. People are just not sure of what to say, how to say it, and when to say it, which is the reason why they're a bit more hesitant to be able to reestablish those boundaries. Now, before I go into a couple of strategies that will help you, I want to say hello to those of you in the chat. We have Maxat, Melayu, hello, and welcome. Let me know what part of Big Beautiful World you are joining from. And has anybody ever crossed your boundaries as a leader? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happened and develop a strategy so that does not happen again. As I mentioned, many people are worried about setting those boundaries because they don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. And by nature, when people think of the word boundaries, there is sometimes a negative connotation that goes with it, unfortunately. And when people say that, they automatically feel like they're going into a contentious conversation. And majority of people do not want to be in a contentious conversation. They just simply don't want to be in that type of setting. So that's the reason why a lot of times people are very afraid to set their boundaries. Now, the strategies I want to share with you today that you may be wondering, well, how is this going to work, is how you can verbally reset your boundaries with someone if they cross them, and how you can actually do it in writing as well. If you like this information so far, feel free to give this video a thumbs up. It does allow it to be viewed by other individuals, so I appreciate you for doing that. But let me go into how you can reset your boundaries verbally, and you can reset your boundaries in a written format first. Let's talk about the written format. You would use the written format specifically in a situation where someone has maybe sent you an email, possibly, and they crossed the boundary, and maybe they sent you a text message and they crossed the boundary. Maybe they wrote a note to you and crossed the boundary. All of these are ways your boundaries can be crossed. Now, before I go into this in more detail, I do have to preface this by saying just a couple things really quickly before we talk about how you can be able to address boundaries that have been crossed in a written format. This entire month, for the month of December, you will see there is a lot of content on my channel that's focused specifically on boundaries. Take some time and take a look at some of those videos. They will help you to really start thinking about how you can start setting up boundaries also. Number two is, if you are not sure what boundaries you need to set, take some time and think about what's most important to you. If you need some help with this in your woman in leadership, then reach out to me for a strategy session in the description below. Now, as I mentioned, when you're trying to set or reset your boundaries when they've been crossed, meaning that someone has said something disrespectful, or maybe you have already set up a boundary and this person is simply not listening to it. It could be a list of things, but you have to reset that boundary. If this has happened in a written format, this is what you can do to reset those boundaries. First, you want to think about how do you want to respond. And what happens oftentimes when you have your boundaries crossed by someone as a leader, our first reaction is to do what? Get just angry. We're not happy about it. And sometimes people will react in a very highly emotional way. You don't want to be that type of leader at all. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever been in a situation where you were just about to just go off on someone because they crossed the boundary. Let me know in the comments below, because it happens to the best of us, believe it or not. So you want to respond back in a way that is not highly emotional, meaning specifically, if you are typically a very bubbly or energetic or upbeat person, you have to adjust the way that you communicate in writing. How do you do that? One of the things that you want to do in writing is, one, be as objective as possible and not too emotional. I tend to use a lot of periods when it comes to being able to reset my boundaries in writing, whether it is in an email or it is in a text message. Now, I will share with you all a secret that I have done over the past 20 years as a C-suite executive, a manager, and a director to help reset boundaries when someone crosses them in a written format. Now, I've talked about this before, but I want to share this again for you just to think about it. If you have a situation that comes up specifically and someone disrupts your boundary or is not being nice to you or etc., then you can change your tone of voice, which is very important in the verbal sense, but you can actually do this in writing as well. I personally will do this. If someone writes me a message and it literally is a message like this long or this long, or it doesn't even matter, it's like this long. If I have a very long message that I need to respond to and someone's crossing the boundary, I will typically respond back to that message with 1 to 3 sentences max. Most of the time, I try my best to do it in 1 sentence. Now, you may be wondering, well, what does that have to do with setting a boundary? Well, if you've had a situation where someone is crossing a boundary with you in writing, you have to send a message. And that message that you are trying to send should show, 1, that you're being thoughtful about what they said. 2, that you are being very selective in your words. And 3, you're being very direct with them to reestablish the boundary. Now, let me give you an example of what I would do in this situation. So let's say, for instance, I received a message from someone, and it is one of those long paragraphs talking about something that I've already discussed before as a leader, and they're wanting to cross my boundary or etc. I would take a moment and not respond back emotionally. Typically, what I do, and I mentioned this earlier this morning for those of you who are live, I usually will not respond to those messages immediately. And let me share with you why. Because as I mentioned, if you've ever had your boundary crossed, and let me know if you're watching, if you've ever had your boundary crossed as a leader, we can sometimes become very emotional and upset because someone crossed our boundary. And most of the time, instead of me, let's say if I have a text message, instead of me maybe texting, like, okay, I'm going to say this and that and that. If someone crossed your boundary, what are you doing? You probably just like texting just as fast as you can because you're upset and you're angry. So one of the things I want you to learn from this live is to be very careful in terms of how you respond and when you respond. Because you may need to give yourself a few moments. You may need to pause for a few moments to say, I need to take a break for a moment and I need to not respond to this message at this particular time because I'm already upset, I'm not happy, I'm very frustrated, and that frustration is going to come out. So take a moment to just pause for a few moments before you are in a setting where you're responding back to the boundaries in terms of what they're doing. Instead of just a very calm text message, you're just going in like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they said it. You don't want to do that. That's not the way you want to handle yourself. And definitely if you are subscribed to this channel and watching this video, this is not the place where you're going to learn how to just show all your emotions when you're upset. No, we're going to talk about how you can control yourself, but do it in a very polished and professional way. So I want to say hello to Ameri123. Hello, hello. And Maxat Melayu. Hello again. All right. So we talked about in a written format, some things you can do. First, pause. Make sure you are collected in your thoughts and you're not so upset. 2, I use a lot more periods and no exclamation marks. That's me in general. And then number 3, really, I would encourage you to shorten what you say. Try not to say too much when you are trying to reset those boundaries. The more concise and the more direct you are with someone when they have crossed your boundaries, the better it will be for you because it will send a message that this person is not entertaining that. If you feel like you need to go into a lot more detail, I would simply say, hello, name. I have mentioned this particular issue before. I've discussed the criteria that I need to have completed, or I've discussed the time that I need to leave work, or I've discussed the time that I need to work on a project. In the past, the outline is this specifically, whatever that time is, or whatever the project is. Please let me know if you have any additional questions, or you don't even have to say that. So I'll give you an example. So when I was working as a W-2, there are times where many of you know I have kids and I have to leave at a certain time and to go pick up my kids. And if someone said to me, we're going to modify your schedule in a way where you're going to have to leave later than 5 o'clock, and let's say they sent it to me via text message. To give you an example, I would get my text message and I would respond to them and say, thank you for the message. Maybe. In this case, probably not. I wouldn't even say thank you because I would want to be pretty direct if I've already talked about it before, because I'm wasting my time talking about it again, and I should not be doing that. I would say, I have mentioned in the past that I need to leave by 5 p.m. Please make sure you make the adjustments in the schedule so that I can leave at this time. Thank you. Everything would be in periods, and it would be very short, which is the reason why I highly encourage shorter messages when you are upset, because you just don't want to go into a lot of detail, which you can, but I just don't want you to do that. So that's in a written format. Use periods, very short, concise sentences, restate your boundary, and then keep going. Don't worry about it anymore. Now, if you have been in a verbal setting and someone's talking to you face to face and you need to reset your boundary, I'm going to share with you a strategy that will help you to do that. Before I go into that, let me know if there is a specific aspect of having your boundaries reset that you are struggling with. What is it? What is it that you're struggling with? Let me know in the comments below so we can talk about it. Now, if it is one-on-one or in a group setting and someone's speaking to you and they have crossed a boundary, I talk about this a lot in the video this morning, but on many of my videos here, if this is your first time watching my videos, or you are a follower or a subscriber or someone that's just watching my content, there's a lot of videos I have here about speaking and communicating and being able to manage your emotions under pressure, what you should say, how you should say it, when you should say it, and all of those type of videos. There's plenty of those videos here. Just take some time to look at my live tab and you'll see a lot of those. Now, when you are verbally one-on-one in front of someone or in a group and they have crossed your boundary, your responsiveness has to be very timely. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned that if this happened to you in a written format, whether it's in an email, in a handwritten note, or in a text message, you have a little bit of time to delay. But if you're in front of somebody, let me know if this has ever happened to you and they crossed your boundaries or disrespect you in some type of way. You have to respond pretty quickly. You do not want to be the person that does not respond, because it will appear that you are okay with this individual crossing your boundaries. And you do not want to do that. And you definitely don't want to do that as a leader. What you may need to do is ask a clarifying question if you need to buy yourself some time to think. Many times people struggle and ask me, my clients ask me, how can I think on my feet? How can I respond back quickly? How can I do it? And I tell them all the time, you have to buy yourself time. I'm asked questions all the time, especially here on YouTube, that may be appropriate and may be inappropriate. But I have to respond to those questions. Now, before I go into my first step to responding to someone verbally that has crossed your boundary, I want to say hello to Elena, E7V. Hello, hello. Hope you're doing well today. Let me know what part of Big Beautiful World you all are joining from today, and if someone has ever crossed your boundaries as a leader. As I mentioned, if you are public in front of people and someone crosses your boundary, you have to buy yourself time to think. You have to respond, but you need to buy yourself time. So how do you do that? How do you buy yourself time to think? Ask a clarifying question. One, this allows two things to happen. The first, the person that has said something to you, that has crossed the boundary, when you ask them a clarifying question such as, excuse me, can you repeat what you just said? Or, excuse me, can you clarify what you meant? Or, excuse me, I'm not sure of what you just said. Can you repeat it back to me? This one breaks the dynamic and the environment and the energy in the room. You just disrupted it. And when someone crosses your boundary, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, even if they're friendly or they're unfriendly, you have to set that tone. You have to disrupt the energy in the room to say, okay, no, something is not right and I need to be able to adjust this, okay? Now, a great way for you to do that is when you ask that clarifying question, listen to what they said. Because majority of the time, if someone is unintentionally crossing your boundaries, they will have to think back in terms of what did they say and how did they say it. While they're thinking, you're thinking too. And you're thinking of how you want to respond. And you also want to make sure that what they actually said is what they actually were saying. Because maybe they didn't mean it that way. Give them the opportunity to clarify. However, you will find people, and let me know if this has ever happened to you before. You will find people that will be intentionally, yes, I did say intentionally, it does happen in the wonderful world of leadership. They are intentionally trying to cross your boundaries. Now, those individuals, more than likely, when you ask them a question to clarify what they said, they will probably know exactly what they said and repeat it back verbatim. They may have to think about it, but they will usually respond back to exactly what they said. Now, what do you do in that situation? This is an under pressure situation already. So how can you manage yourself and communicate confidently and concisely under pressure? That's why you're watching this video. When someone says something and you ask a clarifying question and they repeat it back to you, the first thing you want to do is not acknowledge, not say thank you, not say I appreciate that, not necessarily. If this is a boundary that you have clearly set and this person is crossing the boundary you've talked about many times, you have to just be very, very direct. And I would say, we've discussed this in the past, that this particular topic is something that we would discuss at a different time. This is probably not the right place for that. If you have some additional questions, you're welcome to ask me at an X location. Or let's say, for instance, someone says something different specifically. Let's say they are talking about, let's say, work hours. Maybe you have to leave, like myself, at a certain time of the day. When you are at work, you have to leave on time. And let's say this person makes a comment about, oh, we have our employees, some of them that can't stay past 4:55, they have to leave, and etc. And if they're talking directly to you, then you absolutely want to use this as an opportunity to provide some insight and to showcase your executive presence by letting them know that I have mentioned that I have responsibilities. I have to leave at X amount of time. Even if you don't have anything going on and you've already set these boundaries, you have to do a hard reset of those boundaries, especially if this is one-on-one, verbally, with you and somebody else, or even publicly. You have to do that so people start to see exactly what needs to happen. This is something that I encourage you all to not be afraid of doing. People will try to test your boundaries all of the time. And if they test your boundaries and they act that way, you have to do a hard reset. Even if it hurts someone's feelings, and you've already discussed this before, you have to do a hard reset. And the best way to do it is to outline what that initial boundary was. Therefore, when someone's responding back to you or talking back to you, then you have to respond back in such a way that says, I've already talked about this. I've already discussed this previously. We have had a conversation about this previously. This is what needs to happen. Now, most of the time, people will not argue back with you. They'll say, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to check. People always want to check and see if it's okay for them to cross your boundaries. But as you know, and especially from watching this video, no, it's not okay. And yes, you will get a check, but it will be a check for myself on you, not the other way around. Now, if you have someone that is maybe they just after you, they're just really giving you a hard time. You have those individuals like that in professional settings. Let me know if you've ever experienced that. I can say that I have. But sometimes you'll have people that do things like that. And what you want to do in those situations is to be able to go back and forth with someone in a conversation. Now, before I go into that, I see something came on the chat. Oliver Martinez, J5R. Hello, Oliver. How are you doing today? Welcome back. And Oliver says hello again, and I'm back. Well, welcome back, Oliver. I appreciate you being here today. We are talking about what you need to do when someone crosses your boundaries. And this is a Q&A. Therefore, if you have any questions as it relates to this topic, let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them for you. Oliver Martinez, J5R, says, I'm good. How are you? I'm doing fantastic, friend. I haven't been live for a few days because it's the holidays, and I'm going to be live today, of course, and tomorrow, and then I'll be on a break again, and then I'll be back to my normal Tuesday through Friday schedule next Tuesday, and I'll be back on track for everything. But I'm doing great, Oliver. How are you doing today, friend? I hope you're doing fantastically well. As I mentioned, you have to be in a position where you can go back and forth with somebody if needed as it relates to a boundary. Now, how do you do that? If someone says, and you get a sense that they are intentionally trying to go over a boundary for you or trying to cross a boundary, then you have to be able to, one, reset your boundary verbally and let them know this is what we already discussed. And if they have questions about it, just go back to why you had to set the boundary. If it's something personal that you had to do, let's say you have to leave at a certain time, you don't have to necessarily go into that specifically. You don't necessarily have to say your personal business to everybody in the room. You can simply say, we've already discussed this boundary. And the way you say it is what is really going to matter. Make sure you say it in such a way that it's very affirmative, very direct, to the point where this person says, oh, I need to back up because I just crossed their boundary. So I want to say hello to those of you who are joining today. We're talking about, what do you do when someone crosses your boundary as a leader? If you're watching this and someone has ever crossed your boundary and you've worried about how do I reset it, you absolutely want to subscribe to this channel and ask me any questions. This is a Q&A session. I'm here to support you in the way that I can. Oliver Martinez J5R says, did you get anything good for Christmas? Of course, being here and being present with you all on YouTube is a Christmas gift to me, to be here with you all today. We have Apps Bands says, hey, hello Apps Bands. How are you doing today? Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from today. And then also, let me know, has anyone ever crossed your boundaries as a leader? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know what happened. Let's talk about some strategies so that this does not happen to you again. I want to equip you with these skills that you need to help you be able to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure. This is the best place on YouTube for you to learn how to do that. There's plenty of other general communication channels here. There's a lot of people that talk about communication. But this is the place where you come to learn how to communicate under pressure. If you are going into interviews, board meetings, someone crossing your boundaries, someone being disrespectful, someone making you mad, or you're in a contentious situation, maybe you are in a political office or public office, you're a CEO, you're a leader, this is where you learn how to communicate under pressure. Oliver Martinez J5R says, well, I have to go. Bye. I hope you get a lot of people in your life. Well, thank you, Oliver. That's so very kind of you, friend. And thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you. And it's always good to see you. And if I don't see you tomorrow, have a very happy new year, Oliver. And I will see you in 2026. All right, we have SMB720 says, hello, welcome. We have Keaton Player, welcome. Oliver Martinez J5R says, okay, bye, Oliver. I will see you next time. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from today. And let me know if anyone has ever crossed your boundaries. For those of you who have just joined, we have been talking about what to do when someone crosses your boundaries. There's a lot that happens, and I've been talking about boundaries this entire month of December on my live channel, on my live tab on my channel. So if you have any questions, I probably have answered at least one or two of them as it relates to setting boundaries. So we're going to talk a little bit more about it here this evening. Ask me any questions if you've ever had your boundaries crossed. I'm here to support you and give you some insight in terms of what to do so it doesn't happen again. We have Keaton Player says, you are so cool. Well, welcome. Thank you, Keaton. I appreciate that. And thank you for stopping by. I know you are new to the channel. I don't remember seeing your name before. So I'm glad you're here. Let me know what questions you have about setting boundaries or communicating at a higher level than your peers. Anything as it relates to advanced communication skills, I will help you stand out from everybody else as a leader. Now, for those of you who just joined, we just talked about strategically how you manage situations when your boundaries are being crossed. Now, a couple things, as I mentioned before, that there's a lot that goes into boundaries. There's a lot that goes into the topic, but it all comes down to how you are able to communicate your boundaries to other people. And that's where a lot of individuals, whether you are a leader or not, they tend to struggle because people are just, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say, how to say it. Or they may be in a setting where they just don't want to be in a contentious conversation, where they don't know how to communicate under pressure. Now, if you're a woman in leadership, you're in my direct target audience that I provide executive coaching and consulting services to. So you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I will provide you with some insight in terms of how to communicate under pressure, concisely and confidently. Just take a look in the description and sign up for a strategy session in the description below. So we talked about a lot so far. We talked about just different aspects of boundaries. There's so many things we've talked about, but I want to summarize it for those of you who have just joined the live. In this video, and as I mentioned, there's many other videos on my live tab. Spend some time, look at the live tab. You're going to learn a lot as it relates to communicating and standing out from everybody else as a leader. There's a couple things that you want to consider. One is, keep in mind that you can reset your boundaries, whether they have been crossed verbally, one-on-one in a conversation or in a group, or if they have been crossed privately or in writing. Many people think that they can't set boundaries in writing, but you can. And we talked about that at the beginning or middle of the live. If it's something it sounds like something you want to learn a bit more about, definitely take a look. I broke down how I respond to messages that are in writing that crosses a boundary to give you some insight in terms of what I do. We just talked about what you can do verbally when someone crosses a boundary, but I am going to save the best for last as it relates to verbally when someone crosses a boundary. We talked about if someone does it intentionally or if they do it unintentionally, how you can prepare yourself to reset your boundary by talking about it. So as I mentioned, we talk about a lot of information here, specifically as it relates to setting boundaries. Now, one of the things I want to share with you that will be one of the most important aspects of setting your boundary, especially verbally, is your tone of voice. Now, I have several videos on my channel that talk about tone of voice and how to modify it, how to lower it, what you need to do with it. But I will share with you, if you are trying to reset a boundary, your tone of voice is so important if you're speaking verbally. Your eye contact is important. You need that. But your body language is important. You need that. It needs to be very much of an executive presence type of body language. You should be communicating confidence and strength. But the secret to resetting boundaries is your tone of voice. That is the secret. And if you want to learn more about this, let me know in the comments below. This is something you absolutely want to be able to navigate and put it in a more tangible way that you can learn how to master this skill. Now, we've talked a lot about boundaries. I'm going to keep talking about boundaries for a bit more until I feel like we're at a point where we've talked about it a lot. And if you have any specific type of scenarios that have came up for you, maybe you are struggling with some type of boundary that you're trying to set for 2026, or perhaps you are in a leadership role and you're trying to advance in your career and you're just not exactly sure in terms of what you want to do or how you want to do it, and etc. Maybe you're in a new leadership role and you know you have a higher visibility than everybody else. This is the place for you to ask those questions that you just don't want to ask other people. Because sometimes in this world of leadership, you just don't know who to have a conversation with, especially if it's about a sensitive topic. You're welcome to ask me any questions, especially if you're liking or watching the live videos or any of my videos. Put something in the comments and I will do a video just for you and give you a shout out. And also, I want to say hello to Opindi Frederick. Hello. I believe you've been on the live stream before. Hey, I appreciate you for coming back. Hello. Opindi Frederick says, hello, everyone. Blue Heart. As we enjoy this live stream, I kindly ask you to remember orphan and underprivileged children who lack love, care, and basic needs. Nothing is small to help us feed today. Well, that is very, very kind of you. And I want to give you a high five because that is something that I know we're talking a bit about boundaries, but this is something to really keep in mind. There are children out there who are really struggling, and there are children out there who are hungry, who are orphaned, and they're just struggling. They don't have the love and care that they need, and all of us as adults, or individuals that may be younger here, we know how important that is. So Opendi Frederick, I appreciate you mentioning that, and that is something very important that I would be happy, of course, to share, and just know that there's different causes out there. Of course, you have to always really be mindful of where your funds go if you decide to do that. But just the sentiment and the thought of it, Opendi Frederick, because other people watch the live videos, they watch the replays. It is a very, very good and wonderful reminder for everybody to remember that there's other people out there that need love and support too. So appreciate you mentioning that. And I hope you have a very, very happy new year. Also, as I mentioned, if you have any topics you want to learn a lot more about, let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to give you any insight that I can that will help you to communicate at a higher level than your peers and stand out from everybody else also. And if that sounds like something you're ready to do and you are ready to shine in 2026 like you have never done before, it starts with how you communicate. And this is the best place on YouTube for you to be. Opendi Frederick says, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too. And I appreciate you being here and sharing some good news as we approach the new year. Now, I want to know from those of you who are watching or watching the replay, what are your goals as it relates to leadership and communication for 2026? What are they? Let's talk about them. And let's do something fun. So what we can potentially do, and I'll put a vote on my communities tab. I have a couple posts coming up for you all very soon. Some really exciting things. There's a scholarship I'm going to be giving out for a service of mine. I have to show you all the wrap of my vehicle because I talked to you about that. But then I think we need to do something special for New Year's. I believe so. What we can potentially do for New Year's, and let me know your thoughts about it, and I'll put it in the communities tab, is maybe we have a planning session. So maybe come to a live on New Year's, and perhaps we just set some time to have a conversation about what your plans are and where you're trying to go. And I'll give you some insights and give you maybe some questions and some strategies to think about as an executive coach to help you uncover some of those challenges that you might be facing in the new year. That sounds like something I may want to do because I know how important it is to set, I would say, you can say goals, you can say visions, you can say so many other things, but I know how important it is to have that quiet time to really think about, well, what am I doing this year? And so maybe we'll do something like that. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll put something on my communities tab. You can vote on it. If it's something that you want, if you've never worked with an executive coach before, and of course we're doing this via group session necessarily on a live, but if you've never worked with a coach before, then this is definitely an opportunity for you to get a sense of what it's like somewhat, and to see if it's something that you want to be able to invest in and really help you make your goals and exceed your goals a lot faster than you would by yourself. Okay, we have Opendi Frederick says, my goals for 2026 is to reach more people, build these beautiful souls a home, start farming, glow in my leadership. Oh, fantastic. I appreciate that. High five. That is amazing, Opendi Frederick, and I appreciate you so much for mentioning that. So what are some things you're trying to do in terms of glow in your leadership? You're already doing some amazing things in terms of reaching people and helping children. I think that's fantastic. And farming is very interesting also. What are some things you're doing trying to glow in your leadership? Let me know in the comments below. We have Pratik Galatkar 1011. Hello, Pratik. How are you? Welcome back, friend. Good to see you again. We just talked about setting boundaries, and Pratik was on our live earlier today. So Pratik was able to get some insight in terms of how you can work on the actual saying of boundaries. So Pratik, what we talked about today, since you're here, is we talked about how you can address boundaries that have been crossed verbally and in a written format. And I shared with everyone a strategy that I do personally, and Pratik Galatkar 1011. I don't think you've been on my live when I've talked about what I do. Specifically, when someone crosses a boundary or if they send me a long message that's just full of emotion and energy. As a C-suite executive, I did this. As a director, I've done this. I tend to send a very limited response. It is typically 1 to 3 sentences max. And those are very short sentences. This is a great way for you to be able to showcase that you read the message, but you're being very concise and direct. So for example, Pratik, because I know we've talked about setting boundaries, etc. If someone sends you a message and you've already outlined this boundary to them and it's in a written format, then what you can do is when you reply back to that person and they're still crossing the boundary, reply back to them in a way that is no exclamation, just periods. And you can also mention that you've already discussed this boundary previously. Please make the adjustment. Thank you. That's it. And leave it at that. I tend to be very direct if someone crosses a boundary, or if someone sends me a long text message of a paragraph that's just full of emotion. You have to spend too much energy to go into a long text message on your phone about this saying this and this and that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to expend your energy. And I know that's something we talked about, but that's something that I wanted to share with you specifically, Pratik, because I know you are growing and learning a lot. Opendi Frederick says, I do read books, talk to different people above me, and making notes about everything. Fantastic. Well, that's amazing. Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I know you've been here before. I believe I've seen you before. I'm pretty sure I have. So I'm really glad you're here. And if you have anything that you have been trying to master as it relates to how you are communicating as a leader, maybe you're trying to get into a role where there's a lot more visibility, or if you want to learn how to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure, this is the best place for you. You're always welcome to ask me any questions, and I will give you some insight in terms of how you can be able to strategize and communicate in a specific way to help you be able to navigate these challenging situations that comes up as a leader. The fact that you're reading a lot of books is fantastic. Reading books is something that people tend to struggle with, because it's that the whole thing is like you have to sit down and take time for yourself. And as leaders, we tend to be so incredibly busy. We just don't know how to take time for ourselves, even though we need to. So the fact that you're reading books right now, Opendi Frederick, is fantastic. Great job. I will share, I'm reading a book right now. I'm reading Alex Hormozi's book, $100 million Deals, I think is the name of it. I just started it, and I'm just trying to figure out if I like it or not. But that's a book that I'm actually trying to finish. I was trying to finish up by the end of the year, but I haven't. He just launched it a couple months ago, but I haven't had a chance to read it. So I'll let you know what I find out, and let me know what books you're reading. That would be great for us to know, and we can give some insight together. So Pratik Galakar 1011 says, yes, that's a correct thing, minimalistic and correct words to address the problem instead of writing a big paragraph. Fantastic, Pratik. And yes, that is absolutely correct. I appreciate you so much for that insight, friend. I've found that when people send you these long paragraphs, unless you are in a business transaction and this person cannot communicate with you directly, and you're selling a house over text or something like that, okay. Or something like that, then okay, I understand. But for the most part, what I found is that a lot of times when people, I would say, send those really long paragraphs, they tend to be just very, maybe highly emotional people, and I appreciate the heart emojis. They tend to be just highly emotional, and they may think about what they're saying and read it a couple times and all that, but these are the people that are just like, I'm just going to tell you what I said. I'm just going to tell you how I feel. And then you'll get a message that's like this long, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I don't have time to respond to that. Just a couple moments, and let it go from there. So thank you so much, Pratik, for bringing that up. That is what I have done as a C-suite. I had this skill before, and I appreciate the heart emojis. I had this skill before when I was a director, but I did not truly embody it and cultivate it until I became a C-suite. When I was a C-suite, you have to operate at a different level, and you really have to just balance not only your time, but your energy. Like we talked about boundaries before, you have to balance your energy, because sometimes you get those long draining messages and you're just like, I just don't have the energy to do it right now. But you don't want to be that leader that doesn't respond to people either. So it's just a balance between the two. Okay, so we have Opendi Frederick says, I have a question. What could be the best way to approach people? Of course, sometimes I get rejected. I don't know if it's my writings or my messages. Okay, Opendi Frederick. So fantastic question. I have a question for you though. When you mention about approach people, I'm assuming you're talking about your leadership role specifically. If so, let me know. But I'll give you some general things to think about as it relates to this topic specifically. If I know you're a leader, so we'll talk about it from a leadership perspective. When you are communicating with people, and I appreciate the heart emojis, friends, when you are communicating with people as a leader, politeness and kindness is always the best way to start a conversation. Even if it's in a text message, even if it's in an email, even if it is verbally. You want to put yourself in a situation where you are having a conversation and you come across as professional, polite. Even if you are having a difficult conversation, and if you want to learn more about having that, and I appreciate the 100 emojis, if you're having a difficult conversation with someone, watch a couple of my videos here on my live tab about having difficult conversations. They all have to have a structure. Politeness and being kind is a great way to start. So if you're having any issues or any challenges, I would say specifically as it relates to writings and messages, let's think about how you're starting them off. If you're starting the messages with hello, good afternoon, good morning, good day, depending on where you're from or whatever, depending on country-wise where you live, whatever your typical greeting is a great way that I would start. Then if, let's say, you're having a very polite way that you're beginning a conversation, then the next thing you might want to do is be very concise in terms of what you're trying to say. For example, if you're sending a text message and you send a longer message, then people may get confused and they may not respond as quickly. If you are communicating with them verbally, you want to be as concise as you can be. So for instance, I know you're a leader. So if you have something, let's say you're working with somebody, they need to improve upon something and you need them to do better with it. I typically like to answer or ask an open-ended question to see where they are. This may benefit you, Opendi Frederick, and let me share with you why. If you feel like your messages and etc., depending on what the message is, and if you give me some more context, I'll be happy to go into it more with you. But depending on what you're trying to do and the conversation you're trying to have, you can always try to gauge and get some insight in terms of what is the other person thinking, how is their mood today. Now, I hate to say how is their mood today, but some people you just have to know what kind of mood they are in that day. And that gives you an insight in terms of how you may want to communicate with that person. Let me give you an example. So for instance, when I was working as a C-suite executive and as a director, there are several people that I would interact with that were not like myself. I tend to be very even in terms of my emotions. I'm very, very much laid back, but I will get business done. And I don't get highly emotional about things. That's just me personally. That doesn't mean that's good or bad. That's just me personally. I tend to be a bit more calm under pressure, which is why I'm sharing this with you. However, I have interacted with people who will tend to just be very, very just emotional about things. And I may have a hard conversation I need to have with this person, but I know if I have this hard conversation with this person, they're going to cry. Like I know this person they're going to cry. And I found that if you open it up and say, how are things going for you today? Listen to what the person is saying, because that in itself will tell you how you may want to approach the conversation, or you may want to send a message or etc. Sometimes, believe it or not, people may open up to you and they may tell you, oh, Opendi Frederick, I'm having the worst day. Something happened to my dog, or something happened to a family member, or something happened to my car, or something happened to something. And this is just a horrible bad day. Well, this may have been the day that you were supposed to put them on a PIP, which is a performance improvement plan for those of you who may not know. Is this the right day you might want to put them on a PIP? Just depends. You may need to put them still on the PIP, but you may need to maybe potentially strategically put it on an alternative date, maybe the following day or something like that. Get a sense of where people are coming from. That may help you to not be rejected as much. If you're worried about your writings or your messages, try to gauge it as best you can, especially if you're in front of somebody Ask them, how are things going for you today? And people most of the time will say, oh, I'm sick. And thank you for the 100 emojis, friends. They may say, oh, I'm sick, or I'm tired, or I didn't sleep last night. My baby kept me up last night, or I didn't sleep last night. My neighbor's dog was barking all night long. It could be a million things that someone could say back to you to give you an insight to say, I may not want to talk about this topic today, or this is the perfect day for me to talk about this topic. Now, as a leader, all days are not going to be perfect. And all days, you may have to have that conversation, that hard conversation, whether somebody had a bad day or not. It's all about the way you have the conversation and your tone of voice in the conversation. I cannot overemphasize this enough. Your tone of voice will determine how your message, how your conversation is being perceived. If you're not able to control your tone of voice, emotions will come out, people will get their feelings hurt, etc. Now, sometimes you can be as calm as possible and people still will get their feelings hurt. Welcome to the wonderful world of leadership. This happens all the time because as leaders, we're the individuals that are leading the team. We're the people that are having to have those very difficult conversations. That's why we are the leaders, and it happens quite a bit. Okay, so Apindi Frederick says, thank you for speaking wisdom. This has been so mind-opening. Oh, well, thank you, Apindi Frederick. I hope you are subscribed to the channel. I talk about these topics all the time, and I'm here really to support you any way that I can. Apindi Frederick says, do you think it's right to be straight to the point, mostly when asking for help towards my orphanage? Okay, so because you are working on your orphanage, I would say in your case, so it depends. Okay, a couple things. If you're asking for help towards your orphanage, it depends on who you're talking to. So for example, okay, this is a good example. When you came onto the live, what you said is a way to warm up the conversation, so to speak. You basically said, and I'm going to go back to your message because let's talk about this. Your message was very warm and it was very, very friendly. So I'm going to read what you said. You said, hello, everyone, blue heart emoji. As we enjoy this live stream, I kindly ask you to remember orphaned and underprivileged children who lack love, care, and basic needs. Nothing is small to help us feed today. I think that is very, very amazing. So when you're trying to ask for help for your orphanage specifically, coming at it in that type of way is very, very helpful. There's sometimes, Apindi Frederick, you need to be straight and to the point. But there's sometimes there has to be some dialogue that's happening there. So I will share with you what you mentioned earlier on the live is a great way for you to start having conversations with people. And what you may want to do, if it's people let's say if it's individuals you do not know, okay? If there's people that you do not know specifically, then I want to give you some insight in terms of what you might want to say. You may want to start it off with a statistic. So after introducing yourself, hello, my name is Apindi Frederick. It's so great to meet you. Did you know that X amount of percentage of children are not able to receive the care they need because they didn't have access to an orphanage? And they may say, oh, wow, really? Gosh, that's so sad. Then you can talk about your orphanage in terms of what you're trying to do to make a change for it. I found that, and I tell this to individuals I work with, and I'm sharing this with you because I've been a C-suite executive, I've been a director, I've been on the news, and I've worked with congressional leaders on the national level here in the United States and here on the state level here in Florida. And statistics really do matter. You need to have some type of numbers in the back of your mind that you need to pull out any point in time. And when you're trying to look for some support for something, having those statistics will be very, very, very important for you. I know they have statistics out there about children and hunger and etc. There's a lot of research organizations that are trying to combat that and really be able to provide a resource for children across the world. And it may be something you might want to consider in terms of asking help for your orphanage. You don't necessarily, can you get straight to the point? It just depends on who you're talking to. If this is somebody that you already know and you have a relationship with and you've communicated with many times, then yes, you could say, can you support us? We're doing a big drive or something like that. However, if it is somebody, let's say you've never met, then you might want to lead into that statistic I mentioned to you, because they're going to say, wow, I didn't know that. And you can say, we're trying to do what we can to help by doing A, B, C, and D. And we're looking for some support to help us do A, B, C, and D. And would be happy to get some insight from you in terms of how you feel like you can assist, or what are your thoughts about all this. And then that may give you the opportunity to do the same thing. Just gauge what other people say, because you may tell somebody that you may give them the statistic, right? You may tell them about yourself and what you're doing with your orphanage. And if you don't ask them, what are your thoughts about this? Or what do you think? What are your thoughts? Have you experienced this before? Have you heard of this before? They may say a response that says, oh, no, never mind. And you don't want to waste your time. Then that's when you have to move on. But if you can just try to gain some information from them, engage it to see, is this person receptive to what I'm saying, then that will be a good place for you to try to get some help towards your orphanage. If you tell somebody what you shared with us on the live and this person says, oh, wow, I'm sorry to hear that. Is that person going to help you with your orphanage? Probably not. But if you have someone that says, oh, wow, really? I didn't know that. And they show some bit of emotion and some empathy and just engagement with you, then that may be somebody you want to continue talking with to help you with your orphanage. Now, some of the things, and this is just a bonus for you, Opende Frederick, that I want to mention. When you're asking for help, you have to be very observant with the person, because you will interact with people that simply just don't care. And I hate to say it like that, but Opende Frederick, this happens to some of the best causes. There's people out there that just don't care. And when you interact with people like that, you want to manage your energy, like Pratik Galatkar 1011 and I have talked about a lot on the lives. You want to really manage your energy so that you're not expending too much energy on people that are not supportive of what you're trying to do. The ways you can do this is by asking them or telling them those statistics, those data points that really should make them think like, wow, okay, this is really great. And see how they respond. Look at their eyebrows, okay? If they have just straight eyebrows and they're not moving in excitement or in intrigue at all, then it may not be the person you want to continue your conversation with, because you just don't want to spend out your energy to say, okay, I'm talking to this person and they could care less. If they appear like they're excited and they're ready to learn more about you, then that may be a conversation that you want to have. It's a mix. Depending on if you know the person, you may want to be straight to the point. If it's somebody you do not know, then you might need to give them a bit of data first to give them some insight in terms of how they can learn more about your orphanage and how you can support it better. I hope that gives you some insight in terms of your question, which Opende Frederick, that was a fantastic question, by the way. And this is what we talk about here on the channel in terms of how to help you communicate at a higher level than your peers. Opende Frederick is a leader, and a leader that is managing an orphanage. Therefore, there's a lot that you're trying to do. You're trying to help a lot of people to get to where they need to be. Now, if you like this information so far, you're welcome to like the video. It does allow it to get out to more people here on YouTube. And if you enjoyed our dialogue, there's a lot of content just like this on my live tab. That's where I spend most of my time right now. Take a look at my live tab. You'll find videos about eye contact, tone of voice, managing your emotions under pressure, interviewing, resumes, and how to really communicate as a leader, especially when you're in challenging situations, how to have difficult conversations, and etc. So take some time on my live tab and just learn as much as you can. I have a lot of really great free resources here that are a combination of my over 20 years of experience as a C-suite executive, a manager and a director, and a public speaker that will help you really stand out from everybody else. Now, if you happen to be a woman in leadership and you are in those very highly visible roles as a leader, you're wanting to really step into 2026 with a clear strategy and to help you really communicate at a higher level, you're welcome to reach out to me for a strategy session, which is in the description below, where we'll have a brief complimentary call to talk about where you are and how you can go to that next level. This is only for a limited time because things are going to change here pretty soon. Now, I appreciate you all so much for sharing your thoughts with me today. Pratik Galatkar 1011, always welcome. Appreciate you. And Apindi Frederick gave some really wonderful and amazing stories as it relates to the orphanage that they're working on right now. And I would say, Apindi Frederick, you're welcome to let us know about your social media also. If you have social media right now, if you want to share anything specifically to the audience, be happy for you to do that as well. Oh, Pindy Frederick says, thank you so much, Mama. I will definitely follow these steps, given I missed the past, including I missed the past of including statistics of hunger, school dropout, and early marriage. I will definitely do so. Those are some really great statistics. And I know, Opindi Frederick, you'll be able to find that. You'll be able to find some of those statistics. And do you have to say all of those statistics in one sentence? No. But if you have a couple in the back of your mind, you can strategically use them in different types of settings depending on who you are communicating with. Data is power. And statistics will definitely set you apart from everybody else. Most people don't like statistics and they don't want to hear about them. But for those individuals that are a bit more polished and more accomplished, that are subscribed to the channel, of course, they know that having data and numbers to work with and to talk about is something that you absolutely need to have in your back pocket, especially if you are trying to manage something as impactful as Opindi Frederick in terms of working with an orphanage. That's huge. And I commend you so much for that, because there's a lot of children, as you mentioned, that need support. These are skills that people are not talking about on YouTube. And if you like this, feel free to share this channel with a colleague or a friend of yours, because one of the things that I found that many people struggle with as it relates to how they communicate is that we don't know how to communicate under pressure. And many leaders, they just don't know what to do, how to do, when to say it, or what to say. But here on this channel, I really focus heavily on preparing you to communicate confidently and concisely under pressure, because I know many of you are off to do amazing things like Opindi Frederick and Pratik Galatkar and many of the other individuals that are subscribed to my channel. And I want to make sure that you feel very comfortable, even if you're in a challenging situation, to communicate the way the best version of yourself would do. So I appreciate you all so much. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll highlight a couple things coming up in 2026 really briefly while I'm waiting for any questions to come through. So there's a lot that's happened in 2025. I appreciate you all so much for being present and watching my videos here. It does mean so much to me. And I know YouTube sees it. As many of you know, I'm on YouTube's live streamer research panel for the next year, because I've been doing so many live streams. And a lot of that is attributed to you all watching the videos and watching the live stream. So I'm really grateful and thankful for you all. There's a live video we did last Monday, I believe, where it was almost 3 hour live video that talked about setting boundaries. If there's any questions you have, do you have to watch the entire 2.5 hours of video, almost 3 hours of video? No, you do not. But you may want to fast forward through some aspects of it to help you start setting boundaries for 2026. As I've mentioned, I've talked about for the majority of this month as it relates to setting boundaries, many people, when they are stepping into the new year, there's like, okay, new year, new me. I got to do something different. And we get into June and July and we find that we just have not accomplished what we were trying to do. Many times there's some type of boundary that's not being set. And I really have focused in on that this month. And for those of you who are new, I'm going to go through those boundaries really quickly because I want to support you any way that I can. There's a lot of boundaries out there, leaders, but there's certain boundaries that you might want to think about for this year. Time boundary, money boundary, energy boundary, personal boundary, and professional boundary. So you may want to think about those 5 boundaries as you're stepping into 2026 to determine what type of boundary am I lacking in that might be preventing me from accomplishing the goal that I want to accomplish. I've shared with you the boundaries that I struggled with early on, and there's a lot of, I've talked about it quite a bit. You just have to take a look at some of my lives because I honestly don't remember which ones we talked about those in. But work on your boundaries for sure. I mentioned to you all, I wrapped my vehicle for the business, so I promise you I will send you some pictures of that. I'll do that. And then also we may do something for New Year's, something in terms of a planning type of event. And let me know. I'll do a post and a vote. Let me know if you're interested in doing something like that from an executive coaching standpoint to see if you can get some insight to help you move forward in your careers. I'm going to be launching a podcast this year. And the podcast is specifically going to be on hard conversations because I believe that as leaders, we struggle with hard conversations because we just have not heard enough of them. And I want to pull leaders, even though my direct target audience that I support in terms of executive coaching and consulting services are women in leadership. However, this topic, because it's such a huge topic, I'm going to be pulling leaders from larger companies and getting them on the podcast so we can talk about some of the harder conversations they've had and what is a lesson that they felt like they learned from it so that you can learn something as a leader and that you feel more empowered about having this type of situation where you can be more comfortable in hard conversations. So that's coming up this year, and I appreciate the emojis, friends. So that's coming up this upcoming year. Also, I'm going to be releasing a book this year on executive presence. I appreciate the heart emojis, friends. It's going to be on executive presence. I'm publishing a book this year, so that's going to be coming out also. And then I'm going to go back. I'm going to keep my live schedule. So I'm still going to be live Tuesday through Friday, as usual, in the morning and the evening. However, the change will be just this week just because it's a holiday. So I'm live today, I'll be live tomorrow, and I'll probably be off for the next couple days. And then next week I'll be back to my normal schedule. For those of you who are just joining or just new to me, I typically am live Tuesday through Friday, but it's a holiday, this holiday season, so the schedule is a little bit different. But I will say I'm going to transition into pre-recorded videos also in addition to my lives. So therefore, if you have any topics you want to learn more information about, if there's something maybe you're dealing with as a leader or as a woman in leadership, and if you're a man in leadership also, and you're just struggling with it and you're just like, I don't know who I can talk to about that, just send me something. You're welcome to contact me on Instagram at Excite Excellence, LinkedIn at Dr. Jacinta Lamontai, or at Excite Excellence. You're welcome to contact me on Facebook as well at both of those handles too. And just let me know. I'll do a video just for you, a pre-recorded video to give you some insight. So you're going to see a mix of a lot more growth on the channel. You're going to see more pre-recordeds, and you're going to see definitely the live still. And then I'm also going to start my leadership series where I'm giving some feedback and watching other leaders, how they communicate. We have a couple leaders on the list that you all said you wanted me to evaluate. So I have a few screenshots of those. And if you have a leader specifically that inspires you or you're motivated by, if you give me their information, just their name, I'll look them up on YouTube or online, and I will pull out what they are doing to motivate and inspire you, so that you can either use some of those strategies or not use some of the strategies that they're doing to help inspire and motivate other people. I want to help you all to become better communicators, and the best way to do that is to show you how it actually happens. So I appreciate you all for being here so much. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you all tomorrow before we step into the new year. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.